I didn't plan to ever be a coach, and I don't know why. I just never. But I do know that athletics was certainly a big part of my life and something that was very important to me.
So your itch has been scratched at this point in the National Football League. You know you could play at that level. You come back to Nebraska, and you're at a bit of a crossroads. You start coaching. You're not making a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
What was the decision like for you to decide, all right, I could teach, I could coach? Why did you stay on the coaching path as opposed to going down the teaching road?
So I came back to Nebraska in January of 1962 and enrolled in the graduate program. And it was sort of fortuitous in that Bob Devaney was hired at that same time. And I think Bob was still at Wyoming but had been hired at Nebraska. I remember writing him a letter telling him that I would like to possibly be a graduate assistant because athletics had been such a big part of my life that I thought that maybe I would somehow ease my way out of athletics. He wrote me a letter and said, well, come in and see me when I get to Lincoln. So I went in to see him and said, well, he really had probably enough coaches and wasn't sure he really needed me to coach. We said he had some kids over in Selleck Quadrangle that he understood were causing some trouble. And he wanted to know if I would move in with those kids and kind of ride herd on them. He said, if you will do that, he said, I'll pay your room and board. I said, well, okay. So I moved in with these guys, and I guess Bob liked what I had done. So he told me that spring to come out and help with spring football. And so in the meantime, I started teaching classes at the university. I had four ed psych undergraduate classes I was teaching. I had met Nancy in actually January of 1962 when I first came back. We got married that summer. So I was married, and for that reason I moved out of the dorm. And
good decision.
Yeah, it was much better. When I had married Nancy, she was under the impression that she was going to marry a professor and that I'd be home every night. And she'd live a fairly nice life. And but I found that the one thing that I couldn't give up was football. For some reason, it was in my blood to the degree where I couldn't walk away.
Fighting the clock, the dandy Duda tosses a clutch 4th and 13 pass to Freeman White, who makes a great catch for the first down.
You know, Bob had turned the program around in 1962. I think the preceding year in 61, they had won 3 games and lost 6. And all of a sudden they go 9-2 and win the bowl game against Miami in the Gotham Bowl, which was soon to be defunct. And then we won 4 straight Big 8 championships, beat Oklahoma. And, you know, Bob was riding high and the staff was riding high. And Bob could do no wrong. And then we had 67 and 68, 6-4 and 67 wasn't greeted with great acceptance, but it was kind of like, well, okay. The 68 was different.
On the next play, the Huskers fumbled.
Things really unraveled at that point. There was some outcry that either Bob ought to go or some assistants ought to go. And Bob said that if one guy goes, we all go. It's kind of strange because probably during those 20-odd years between the Rose Bowl team in 1940 and Bob's arrival in 62, 6-4 season would have been a pretty good year. Most of those years, I think there were only 2 winning seasons in 20 years and no conference championships of any kind. And then all of a sudden, I guess the thing that I learned was that once people taste a little bit of success, that immediately becomes the standard, and anything less becomes very bad. I was kind of interested in what was going to happen here, and when he said, you know, if one guy goes, we all go. That meant a lot to me. And so I was always very loyal to Bob Devaney.